Everybody, it's 9:30, we'll get into it. So I welcome you all here, and especially to our community board chairs, welcome, and also our community staff, Sam, I don't know if you've been here before at the table, can't remember if you have, but welcome anyway. And so my karakia this morning is settle the spirit, clear the mind, prepare the body to achieve what needs to be achieved. Yes, kia kaha. Can I tell you that we will have a earthquake drill at 9:30, so it's running late already. So, and you're not to get under the tables, you're to get to the nearest exit, and Don tells me that's our exit there, and we've got an exit over here, so that should clear it all. Sorry? Oh, just outside. Is there anyone got a declaration of interest? No, we're all interested. And then we've got no late items and no public excluded items. There's no one speaking in public forum, so we'll move straight to Tauranga West Community Event Fund. And Jodie, I'd like you to introduce it, please.
Morena koutou. For those of you who I haven't met, I'm Jodie Rickard. I'm the Community and Strategic Relationships Team Manager. I'm just going to introduce Rebecca Chambers.
Morena, everybody. So the Tauranga Western Bay Combined Events Fund is basically a fund for enabling events, and it is a collaboration between Bay Trust, Tauranga City Council, TECT, and Acorn and ourselves. And so we've pulled together lots of money that combined to approximately $900,000. And so we've just finished round 2 of the fund. So obviously we've provided a list of the events that have been successful so far, and round 3 is closing tomorrow. What else? Has anybody got any questions?
Yes, Rodney.
I'm out of practice, we haven't had a meeting for a while. Did I read somewhere in there that the maximum for an event in Western Bay is 15,000 and it's a different limit in Tauranga City? Isn't that a massive incentive, because the limit's much higher in Tauranga City, for people to hold their events in Tauranga City rather than Western Bay? And while I appreciate there may be different levels of funding, surely there's another way of differentiating in that regard. But it just seems, if you come to Western Bay, you will not get as big a hand as you would if you're in Tauranga City. So the maximum limit for an event in Western Bay is much lower than it is in Tauranga City. So it's a massive incentive for people to hold their events in Tauranga City rather than Western Bay.
There is no discrimination, though, as to the amount of funding each event will get, is there, Bex?
Yes.
Yes, yep. So that's correct what Rodney said. So that if you're in the Western Bay area, then the maximum that you can get is $15,000. So basically the reason behind that is TCC put in, I think they've put in excess of $200,000, I think, and we've put in $60,000. So I think it reflects the percentage of what everybody's put in. So if we were to increase what we put in, that amount of $15,000 has potential to increase as well. So that's always an option moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's also worth noting that, so while, yes, it may look like there's an incentive there, if you look at the events that have been funded, that's not what's actually occurring. We're getting a really good spread right across the district and some really great events happening.
I think so. Peter?
Bex, hi, how you doing? Hey, you said it closes tomorrow. When's the next one?
So round 3 closes tomorrow, and then the next one closes the 20th of January, I think, and then they'll get assessed on the 20th of February. So that will be round 4,
Okay, so 20th of
Jan.
every month. Well, yeah, hold on, January,
Yeah,
February.
so there's a bit of a break now
Okay,
because
yeah,
of
it was
Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Happy to send you all the link.
Thank you.
Councillor Henry.
Just reading the people have taken up already, there's already more than half taken. So is there a strategic strategy to level that out so people who are not submitting a claim or a request early with subsequent people who may not be putting theirs in until later on? How does that, how do you work through that one?
Yeah, so obviously, the sooner the people get their applications in, the better. But at the panel meetings, we do discuss trying to like spread it out over the year. But in reality, we're obviously assessing if those applications have met the criteria and they're scoring highly and they deserve that amount of money, they will be getting the amount of money that they've asked for. So we try not to discriminate the applications based on things that we think are coming in, because unless the organiser have actually submitted the application, we don't know that they're going to come in.
So just, it may have been in there, but I can't remember. How long before the fund is renewed? You know, the amount that, when does it?
Or end of
Get
financial year,
Every 2 years?
every financial year.
Oh, every
Yeah.
financial year, okay.
Yeah, so just to clarify that, it is $900,000 per annum, isn't it? That's available, which is a really significant investment. It's fantastic. Yes, yeah.
Welcome to you too, Sam. Is there anything you would like to add?
Welcome, everyone. Not on this topic, no.
Councillor, Member Clemens.
Bex, hi. We had a meeting yesterday for Kerikeri 150th anniversary, and obviously that's in about 2 years' time, so a major event, 18 months. There's obviously preparation work, and then there's a number of, it's a two-barrel question. One is, can they apply for work like setting up of the event for web pages and all of the other material, social advertising material? And then obviously the event is in 2025, so that's when they want to apply again for some more funding. So that's one question. The second question is whether there are smaller organisations who will be organising events that are feeder into that bigger picture, the 150th anniversary, besides the organisers. Can they apply for those funds as well as separate entities? And how will they be regarded?
Yeah, so firstly, John, they can definitely apply for anything to do with the event. So social media, website, advertising, absolutely. Yep. One great thing about this fund is we don't actually tag the money to specific items. So if you were to apply to pub charity or something, that you'd have to specify exactly where that money is tagged to, whereas like we believe as a panel that it enables events to happen more if, you know, you've given that money and it's up to them how they spend it, as long as it's on that event and they can report back on it. So that's no problem. But in terms of other organisations, so we've had that come up, you know, with other events and festivals, and the short answer is no. So if those organisations are wanting to apply for something, but the outcome is still at that event, then it wouldn't qualify because that event has already or may have already received money for that event. So I guess my advice there would be just to the applicant apply for as much as possible at once, if you see what I mean.
Anne, can I just, it's on the same question that John's asked, just seek clarity on it. The event, 150 years and prior and after the Irish settlement is running from Matariki to Waitangi Day. There is a steering committee, but people are being invited within the community to set up their own separate way of celebrating. That's not necessary. It's only under the umbrella of that. So what John's asking it, so those they're actually individuals within that timeline.
Yeah.
So seeing it in that light, they're under the banner of the theme, but they're working as individuals. The steering group are not having anything to do with it, only just placing them on the timeline.
Right. I guess that would be something that if we can
That's
clearly
explained,
demonstrate
yeah.
that and it's explained, I guess you'd need to separate them into individual events. So, for example, Kati Kati Santa Parade has got some funds. Oh no, that's a really bad example.
Well,
Can I just use that as an
For example, Matariki could be, they could put something in for their event,
Yeah.
which is part of the timeline. Then Open Air Art could do
Yeah.
something, which is another organisation, but it's under the same umbrella as that, because it's a whole period of time that
Yeah.
celebration
I guess-
going on, which will be explained, but I just want to clarify that they are all individual events within the same theme.
Yes, I think, and Jodie just pointed out the Jazz Festival as an example. That's probably a good example. So the Jazz Festival receive lots of money from TECT, Bay Trust, and TCC, and not us. But Catch Kati Kati will be putting in an application for the umbrella event for the Jazz Festival, and that will be considered. But what may happen is some of the panel members might opt out because they feel they've put enough money into the Jazz Festival overall, but they have the ability to opt in because it's a separate event, kind of, but it falls under the umbrella. So
And
yes,
just more clarity around the other point that John was asking. So it's not for 2 years, and I think you were asking about setting up the costs of websites and all that for individuals in 1 year, and then the event coming up in another year, a funding year, to make another application for the actual event cost. Would that be considered acceptable? I mean, obviously it stands up against everything else at the time, but that's essentially what you were asking, I think, John. So they might make 2 applications just for the setup and one for the event itself, because they run in different years.
yep, that's exactly what I'd suggest. So, yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think it would be really useful to have this conversation maybe offline with Bex, with the steering group, to really be able to work through how those things might work, because it's probably a little bit, but with
Yes.
Rebecca there, and really just working out what is the steering group going to be applying for as kind of an umbrella overall event, how long is that going to be for, and then what are some of those kind of, I guess, kind of sub-events that are linking in with the theme and how that all might work. But I think that's probably something that needs a little bit more,
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair. In the light of this conversation, Waiheke Beach School is doing its 100-year anniversary in the next couple of years, so I need to get them all lined up to apply for whatever they're doing in the wider context. They've already made inroads into it, but I'm certain that they will want to know how it can happen for them. Thank you.
I'd like to say how important it is that we've got this agenda in front of us, because the community can look also online and see just how much we actually do as a council in this event space. And I think it's great that it's coming into the public arena and everybody could see what needs to be done and what we are doing. So, and if there are any further questions on the subject, we'll deal to those, as Jodie says, offline. There can be tidying up, but anyway. So Councillor Sol, you might like to move the recommendation while you're there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, quite happy to move the to move that, Madam, and yeah, great to see everybody there today. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's seconded by Richard Crawford. Oh, any discussion? I'll put the motion in favour, say aye. Against, carried. Jodie, the next subject.
Thank you.
The next subject is yours as well. And what is it? The Mayor's Task Force and Job Update.
So through you, Madam Chair, I'll hand this one over to Sam Wilburn to provide the update on what's been happening with the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs.
Kia ora, everyone. I'll just give you a brief overview of the project. So the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs is an employment program. It's funded by central government, and our district, we were lucky enough to begin a pilot project at the start of this year. So it's a 6-month pilot project. We had to achieve 10 outcomes for that project, 10 employment outcomes, which we managed to achieve. And therefore we were granted extended funding for 2 years. So that funding's been pushed out to 2025. So I guess the purpose of this is to make sure that you guys are all, and ladies are all aware of the project and where it's operating. We have a coordinator out in Te Puke called Davina Edwards. So her job is to go around and find these kids. So in 9 months, we've managed to place 20 rangatahi into sustainable employment. So what sustainable employment is 90 plus days into a job. And the majority of these kids placed were NEETs, so not in education, employment or training. So they were literally just sort of falling through the traditional education cracks. So Davina has embedded herself into the community, and a lot of her referrals come from word of mouth. So now she's well established into that community. She's getting calls from whānau, friends of friends saying, hey, look, I've got a young nephew who's been sleeping on my couch. He's not doing anything. What can you do to help? So she's got a lot of resources that she can wrap around and help that individual to get into employment. So yeah, it's a really great program, and we're lucky that we have this funding from central government, and it's producing some really great outcomes in the community. Happy to take any questions on that program.
Yes, Councillor Coxhead.
Sam, I just want to say what a fantastic initiative, and I'm so pleased to see it going well. I had a really long conversation with Davina at the Expo recently, and she's doing a fine job, settling in very well, I would think. Nice to see that we're not just, we're doing something about keeping kids occupied and keeping them busy and looking forward to fulfilling lives. So the only thing I do recall from my conversation with Davina was the issue of getting people transported to work, and of course there's not the public transport options there, and many of these young people don't have a car, do they, or there isn't a spare car at home. So I was just wondering how that was going.
So that's an issue for all youth employment programs pretty much within the whole of the Bay of Plenty. So yeah, a lot of Davina's time is picking up rangatahi, taking them to interviews. So she's super busy doing that. But what we are doing in the background is we're looking to establish or work towards a driver licensing program system. The Wairarapa Council have a really good model that we're looking at adopting that. However we do that, I don't know what that looks like at this stage. So that will be a license program where kids can go from their learners to their restricted, and they'll have a driving instructor and a car, just to fast track that process, because you're right, due to the rural nature of our district, it's really hard for kids to make job interviews to even get to work. So that's sort of the first step we're looking to try and enhance.
You just reminded me, there's a fund, and I can't remember, it's through a charitable of some sort. I can't remember the name of it, but there is a fund where they charge zero interest on things like consolidating debt, for example, or things like perhaps in this scenario might be appropriate as well. I'll try and find the name of it because, yeah, 0% interest is a big deal. And I mean, obviously you don't want to go and push people into debt, but if there's no interest cost and it gets them to work, it's kind of a good debt. I'll have a look and I'll,
Yeah, thanks.
let you know.
Just through you, Madam Chair, can I just alert all the elected members to, on Stella, we have actually uploaded Davina's latest report. It's in a PowerPoint presentation on there. We have kept that in confidential just to protect the privacy of the individuals that are in there, but that's a really great read in terms of just the value for the rangatahi who are achieving driver licensing. It's just that step alone is, you know, pretty massive in terms of life direction, and then there's the employment outcomes are in that report as well. So just to let you know, it is in Stella under this
Thank you,
week.
Jody. Medenia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to back up what Jody said. So when I became mayor, this was an opportunity to join Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, and I was very happy to do that. It wasn't quite apparently why we weren't already in this program, but I was really supportive of joining it, and it's been a great success, and I've enjoyed working with Davina. So yeah, really pleased with the way she's helped our community, and yeah, looking forward to some great outcomes for those rangatahi in Te Puke. So yeah, fully supportive.
Thank you, James. Councillor Sol, you have a question.
Yes, so basically there's just a part of the report here. This Ministry of Social Development funded program has received a $2 million investment to focus on youth from Mokorāta Waihi Beach and so on. My question is this money actually on hand? When is it or available, and until when? Basically, is it locked in as well?
Can you answer that, Sam?
Councillor Sol, that's not actually our program. That's the Potama Pathways program. So that's different to the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. I'm not too sure around their funding model. I can try and find out and get back to you about that one though.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, it was just that it's certainly headed under this Mayor's Task Force program. That was all. Okay, thanks.
Clements? Member Clements? Oh, right. And Councillor Henry.
Just further to the question that Alan has asked, that was one of the initiatives, the Potama Pathways was one of the initiatives that started when we had the wellbeing money that came out, and that was begun. Can you put your mic? Oh, begun through and is actually run through the Katikati Community Centre. And yeah, so in terms of the money that's managed and overseen by the community centre. So who was asking that? Oh, Alan, yeah. So they oversee the spending and the applying for that money. But so what I wanted to say was I wanted to congratulate the Mayor for seeing a need out in Te Puke Makatū area. And now we have pretty well good coverage across our rohe, except we do not seem to have, and I don't know whether there is a need, but I suspect there may be in the future to look at the Kaimai area, Kaimai and Te Puna around that area. And then we will really and truly have our net out there for catching those children who are not engaging in education, and that would be really good. So big ups to that, and I'm happy if the Mayor doesn't want to move it, I'll be happy to. Well, I'd be happy to move it when we.
Member Ross.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I had some other queries about what's happening in Kitticat, because it says focus on youth from Mokorāta Waihi Beach. And there seems to be an invisible network, which that may be great, invisible network, but where are these kids coming from, and where the contact points out into the wider community are coming from? We've of need of them just the same as everyone else. There are things. including 2 ram raids in Hawaii Beach on Wednesday morning. But the police caught them within an hour or two. So I'm not linking them together, but because they came from the Waikato. But I'd like to, I mean, if it's transparent about where you contact, if you know of anyone or community organisations are working in like-minded things, they can refer them to them. Great initiative.
Thank you, Ross. John?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. And just a quick one, I think Alan's question was really around Patama, the funding model. Is there funding guarantee going forward at the moment, or is it, okay, thanks.
Councillor Denia. Oh, sorry, Councillor Daly.
Yeah, thanks, Margaret. Richard and myself were present at the CoLab meeting in Te Puke yesterday, and Davina gave an update from her perspective on the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, and she put quite a bit of emphasis on the young people trying to gain their restricted driver's licence and the stress that involves, and requests from them to go to a small town to sit the test because they felt it was more likely to get a favourable outcome than going to Hewlett's Road or whatever. But I can speak from experience in that I've got a person very close to me of the younger generation who has failed her restricted driver's test 7 times. It's a cause of immense anxiety, and the test itself is actually part of the anxiety, because they seem to get failed on quite minor things, it seems, even though they've been driving for 5 years on a learner's license and very confident. As soon as they get in the car with a tester, the anxiety levels rise, and I'm just wondering if there's any, I'm not sure, it's just a commentary really that I don't know, most of us probably got our licence when we were 15, and we went for a drive around the block and we backed into a driveway and did a U-turn, and they ticked us off, and that was us set for life. But I just find it amazing that these kids are being subjected to these tests over and over and over again, and if you guys can somehow improve that situation, I think that's really great.
Anne and then James. Oh, go on.
No, I'll just respond to that because that's been, my son has been recently doing that and had exactly the same experience. Driving down Cameron Road with the roadworks as they are at the moment and doing it in a flawless manner according to the road code is actually quite difficult at the moment. But I would say, what I wanted to say was that it is good that the law has been, or the rules have been changed such that you don't have to pay now to repeat your driving test. So the anxiety of paying for the test, which is a big barrier for those who aren't well off, it's $150 a time or whatever it was, it was quite a barrier, and that's now been taken away. But I agree that there's still the anxiety barrier and the sense of failure, and hopefully I think we all want the roadworks at Cameron Road to be finished fairly soon for any number of other reasons, and hopefully that'll make things easier.
It's just as well all of us don't have to sit a test on Cameron Road. We'd have great difficulty. But anyway, sir, you're moving the adoption of the recommendations that we received. Seconding, Anne. Any further discussion? I'll put the motion in favour, say aye. Against, carried. And now we move to Community Forum Outcomes. That's on page 16. It's over to you now, Greer, and she'll take charge out the front.
Oh, this angle's a little bit different. Tēnā koutou. So I just thought I would give a brief overview of the purpose of the report and how we came to the report as it stands. So the report is broken into two parts. First, setting out broad themes across the community forums, and the second part is the attachments that show the specific issues and the action that has been taken since the forums on each issue. So the purpose of doing the attachment was to close the loop so that conveners could point to something in a public agenda and say, yep, we heard you, this is the action that has been taken. So my team have done a really good job of going around the organisation and getting answers on each of those things, whether they're service requests or ideas as a whole. And yeah, so they ensured that those were the most up-to-date actions at the time of publish. So if there's any other questions, happy to answer them.
I think, Greer, first comment I'd like to make is that appreciated the depth of detail that you went into reporting on the forums, because we haven't had that, and this is really the first serious update that we've had. You made the point that for the community, they can look into our website and see where we are going with our recommendations. You said also that there were a great many service requests because there was so much on roading and mowing and stuff that needs to be done, and those service requests have gone in and are being actioned upon. The other thing you said was, and Mrs. Davey has said, is that the service request system is being investigated so that we close the loop, but we're not there yet, so that everybody can see where the service request was, where it's gone to, what action has taken place, and back to the person who actually made it. And I think that's going to be a challenge, but you're making progress, aren't you, Rachel? Correct. She said correct. So any questions?
Just further to the point that you just made, in closing the loop in terms of the service requests, can they also come back to the conveners, and because we don't actually, we won't get that.
So you're wanting to know the outcome of the service request rather than that it's been raised?
So it's good. Well, I think it's really important that we've been in the room with our constituents saying that they have these concerns and the service requests, and that's all great. The information is very full and very accurate. But we don't know that it's been closed.
Okay.
So we go out and we'll see them. So if we can be included in that closure as well.
Greer, Mrs. Davies would like to respond as Deputy Chief Exec.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I would like to do, if it's okay with you, is to direct a response to the whole issue of service requests, noting that the vast majority of our service requests, and you might recall that we had a workshop around service requests, and we had Downers and Westlink come into the council chambers a number of months back now. But what the analytics showed is that the vast majority of our service requests are in the roading space, closely followed by water. And this might be a really good opportunity for Velita, our Customer and Library Services Manager, just to speak to the work that's been going on in the background directly with Westlink and the results that we are seeing now.
Thank you for your time. Yes, so we've worked really closely with, myself and my team have worked really closely with Westlink and everybody involved in primarily transport and roading service requests. As Rachel just said, they are the ones that are actually out the gate in numbers and not being followed up, had not been followed up. We would average, prior to us doing this piece of work that we're currently working on, 500 service requests around roading a week. And that's a lot of repeated, it's not the number of jobs, actual jobs, it's people ringing back saying what's happening, what's happening, what's happening. And so we'd be adding from different people around the same type of job. The reason behind that is the customer was not being updated. the only way for us to do that. And the responsibility with our current contract is that it sits with Westlink to ring back. They've got a couple of customer service people. Myself and my team went in and followed the whole process from beginning to end and followed the actual paper, like actually followed it from person to person and how the update happened. Mostly the update didn't happen. When the paper came back to that person, there are lots of check boxes that could have been checked and they weren't checked at all. So all they could do is close the job. So we changed that. And now when they get that bit of paper back, they go in and they update the system with what the inspector, and the inspector has been told to put a note on the bit of paper. Very archaic. No, we shouldn't be pushing paper around, but at least we're getting a message. And then the team can put that in the system, and then those two staff also ring the customer back and let them know what's happened. So that's what's happening now. We went from 500 a weekish to around 50. So we're receiving around 50. Some of them are repeat calls, so real ones, one-offs, around 20 a week, reporting a new pothole or a new problem with the road. So we're not getting the repeat turnaround. We're not having those huge complaints, primarily due to poor communication. So we've really worked on that, but it's very manual. There's still heaps of room for improvement and removal of manual error. But we're monitoring it very closely, and the team, everybody that's been involved, including Westlink and the two at the front desk in Westlink, have done a great job in ensuring that the customer is updated, so we don't get the complaints coming back at us thinking we're doing nothing. The customer doesn't mind the answer if we aren't doing anything with a situation. They just want to know where we're sitting with it, and they don't tend to push back when they know the reality of where it's sitting. So a good improvement. Regarding your question about the original creator of the job, it goes to the person who contacts. So the person who contacts us, if you let us know that there's a problem on a road, if it goes straight through to the customer service centre, then we would follow it through that process. If it comes via Mayor's office or John and Charlene does it, it follows a different trail. And so those are councillor or elected member type service requests. It follows a different process. So I'm not quite sure if we're going to be calling them back. Do we call them back to let them know it's finished? Elected members. Yeah? Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. So elected members, yeah, treat them the same. Yeah, there you go. So we follow that process of once the job is done, letting the person know that it's done.
Right, I've got questions from Rodney and Tracy and Ross and Richard and anybody else?
Have a supplement to that?
And Laura. Of course, that was back on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to caveat this conversation by saying I thought it would be useful for Velita to give an update on the work that we're doing around the service request system and responsiveness process. But I'm really mindful that this is not a committee where you dive into every service request that's on the books at the moment. So just that little caveat, please, members. Thank you.
So this is about a feature of Atino. When you...
Rodney, Tracy, Ross, Richard, John and Anne.
So
the first one up is Rodney.
I was at supplementary, I asked for my question. We have, one of the people, when they go in, you can't, and it may change if you're going to ring them, but when they've made a service request, and I've looked at mine too, there's nothing to say that it's been closed, which may, yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to check that because it's a shared service, the Anteno product. It's not just our product. We share it with Tauranga and a number of other councils, and any changes to that has to be agreed on. Yeah.
First question, Rodney.
So it's great to hear communication is easing the workload, hopefully a bit as well. And I've seen that in many organisations. It's been a long drive. Sometimes the engineers want to get it fixed and they don't think about communication. So it's good. My question is more around getting away from bits of paper. I know there's a program, and I don't know who's the best person to answer this, to do this properly, and there's a cost involved in that, and there's money in the budget to do that, although, you know, it's a big IT project. So how's that coming along?
We have the program and the system and the software to do that. It's the software that they currently use, our updated CRM Datascape product. It's just not being utilised that way. And they're not our staff, and it's contractual, and I just wanted to dig in to see how it is currently working, currently working. And so I've honestly told you it's really manual. So now it's a process of improving. We've planned it, we've got it mapped, a process that we want to use. We just have to make that happen.
Is there a time frame on that? I mean, it's complicated, I know, because you're dealing with outside contractors and technology as well as your own people.
Rachel, can you answer that one timeline?
Yes, I can. And I think that that I can answer that question, but I'm not too sure that there's merit in answering that question today, Rodney. I think when we progress the projects and monitoring agenda, Don's agenda later on this month, there will be some really useful information for you, which may mean that we have to take a different approach to service request management in relation to roading and transportation matters, which will remove that whole manual paper shuffling emphasis.
Look forward to it.
So long as the standard of performance improves from Westlink, we'll be very happy. I have questions now from Tracy.
As a repeat offender on the service requests, I can say that the responses and the closing of the loops working really, really well from an elected member's point of view. It's starting to make me even look quite good. It's no mean feat. My question is around Westlink, sorry, probably more Downers. Are they taking a proactive or a reactive approach to maintenance? Are they largely relying on, you know, being prompted through these requests, or are they actually, you know, all driving through a pothole, should we fix this kind of attitude? I don't know what the culture's like there.
How do you want that? Shall I go on that? Yeah. So we do have a reactive, planned maintenance, reactive maintenance, urgent maintenance. We have different capital works. We have different programs. And so each job is determined by the type of problem we are having to report. So if again, we're talking about levels of service, depends on how big is a pothole. Is a pothole this big? Is it going to be bad enough to throw money at, or are we waiting till it gets bigger? So it's around the service agreement, service level agreement in the contract itself. Urgent things, tree down on the road, slips, all of those type of things, urgent. But,
so do they come to us at any stage and say, oh, look, or do they need to, in an actual fact, come to us and say, look, noticing these things in this road, how about we go and fix them? Or how does that work?
Yeah, contract manager needs to talk to that.
So, yes, I wonder, Tracy, whether, because I'm really mindful that Velita's remit in this is managing the service requests as they come through the organisation rather than understanding the nuances of our contractual arrangements. That's probably a question better put through projects and monitoring to Cedric staff.
Next question is for Ross.
Yes, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole either, but potholes just don't get fixed, and when they get fixed, they don't stand up to regular road traffic. And I go back to the long-term plan, Madam Chair. We've got a little red box in the long-term plan of 2 years ago. Potholes is going to be our go-to place. We've got to fix it. We've got white lines around potholes in Waihee Beach. The white lines get rubbed out by traffic going through the pothole before they ever get fixed. So at least the State Highway, when they've got a pothole these days, actually fix the whole lane and fix the hole as well. So
that's news.
Yeah, well, I've noticed a couple up there by the Adelaide Homestead. So there is, I don't know what goes on that the contractor can't fix a pothole and it remains fixed and gets on, because we get told, oh, well, if it fails, they have to do it on their own thing, on their own things after that. Well, Doesn't seem a very good business case.
Right,
To me.
as chairman, I would say I'm happy to hand that to councillor Thwaites, and he will deal to it with his operations and monitoring committee. So the next question comes from Richard.
Yeah, just want to emphasise the importance of communication, and especially in regards to the forums that we do. So those lists of things that come through. My question is about the process, how we're going to give feedback, especially for those who took time to come to our meetings. So because those last 2 minutes came out months later. So I guess maybe thinking more about how we will communicate, especially back to those. So we have like 50, 60 people turn up at our meetings. So yeah, because I think that communicating goes a long way and we've obviously seen the results when the communications got better. The anxiety levels come down because they at least, being responded to. That'd be the biggest beef that I hear out in the community is people not getting feedback or any type of response, and that just drives people nuts. Not good credibility for the council.
Thank you, Richard.
Madam Chair, can I just respond to that, please? Because I think this is really important, just to make it clear that it is the convener's responsibility to close the loop with your attendees. And if a service request is raised, then that service request becomes the vehicle for responding to that particular person who turned up on a Thursday night. But otherwise, it is not the responsibility of the governance team, it is the responsibility of the conveners. We have pulled together these notes as a useful mechanism for you to perhaps circulate via email to the people who attended on that night.
Well, I do sort of understand that. I just wanted, in this process, that clarification for us who are conveners and deputy conveners, that's something that we can do. And I know that Grant made some notes of the last one. I told him to hold off on that until we got the ones that the council staff did. But yeah, I guess it's just working out, what the process is. So thanks for that, Rachel.
Well, I think the community committee is just really starting to get into gear. And what I need from the conveners is the recommendations that they want to put forward to this committee. They have not come forward with one of them. Not one of the forums have had a recommendation that they've taken as a highlight over and above service requests. So I just leave it with you. I look forward to those recommendations, as does Councillor Daly, and we chair and deputies for this committee. We don't have any role with the conveners. They have that responsibility. So the notes will come out sooner and we'll understand and have a better rhythm for the whole system. But I've got further speakers, John, then James, and then Rodney. Laura.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Greer, thanks very much. This report is great. It really is informative, and I think that's a good step. But I look on with envy because of it's all about Waihi Beach, and I know that Waihi Beach, we're part of it. I hate to see the rivalry between the two of us. Is it possible to do the same type of report for the first forum, which was in the Kerikeri area, with some of that report back?
That went to the last community committee.
Okay.
Same kind of report.
Okay.
Yeah, we can send you a link.
Okay.
Sorry?
Yes, not so much a question, Madam Chair, but I did have a recommendation or a motion I wanted to move in addition to the one here. So when the time comes, I'd like the opportunity to move that.
Okay.
Just going through you, Madam Chair, to Ms Davey. The hard part for the convener, of course, is they won't necessarily have the email addresses and neither will the staff. So if someone raises something in a meeting and the convener is actually chairing the meeting, they can't stop the meeting and walk over and go, can I get the email address? So we do need some way of, during these forums, of gathering the contact details so we can go back to people. So I would have thought that would be a staff responsibility rather than a political elected member's responsibility.
So I'd like to answer that one.
Yeah.
Lift the phone.
Well,
There
you
is
gotta know the
no
number.
reason why you cannot identify someone who's got a concern, lift the phone and ring them back as soon as you've got the answer.
But again, the convener, who's been suggested will do this, is chairing the forum. It's chairing the forum. So they're not in a position to stop the forum to start gathering contact details. So we need a better way.
So, Madam Chair, just through you, I have seen a really great system that Andy and Richard operated at their forums, wherein I think it was you, Andy, was collecting details of attendees as they came through the door. That was a really well attended night. That first one was in or around 50 or 60 attendees, and then your second one in Pongakawa was probably around half a dozen or so. But that worked really well. Collecting, having a clipboard and collecting names and email addresses or a phone number as attendees arrived.
So we're having elected members doing operational stuff, okay.
Technically, these forums are not supported by staff, but we do come to open up the hall and put the chairs out.
And make a cup of tea. Laura.
Thank you. So firstly, I just wanted to thank you for what you said, Rachel, about, you know, who's responsible for that, because that was one of my biggest sort of issues with this forum as a whole, because I've been to 3 now as far as I can remember. And my understanding was, why do we keep putting this out to the community when initially, in my mind, the very first ones from the Paengaroa one, none of that was achieved. So now I'm really happy to hear that it is the convener's job to come back to those people and to continue that process, because like we had so many people there because people like myself told everybody that it was happening, come, this is why. But I said, I'm not telling anybody about the second or the third because I don't feel comfortable when they can say, well, what about the issues from the first one? They're not achieved, you know, so thanks for that. And lastly, one question over to you. So you talked about the roading issues going from 500 a week to 50, and that your process has gotten better. How long has that process gotten better for? Like, is it been over the last 2 weeks or?
3 months.
Okay,
Yeah,
only
3
because I
months.
still have a lot of issues with, personally, I do make elected member requests both on Anteno, the app, as well as through the governance team, but I get no response. I never have, other than thank you for your, you know, issue you've raised at service request. And then some of the things are never achieved, like still to this day, and I consider them to be urgent matters. So there's still a disconnect somewhere, and I'm not saying it's with staff. And some of the teams within council are really good. They're 100% responsive and they do their thing, but some of the issues are not achieved in our district.
Yeah, the Anteno process is around email responses, and I'm not confident that we've tidied that up between us here in council office and Westlink. Pretty confident they won't be emailing back because it took a lot to get people to pick up the phone and let people know what was going on. I think sometimes if they receive a direct email in the service request, but if it's not included in the, there's a hole in that bucket. I would ask you to continue to, if you've just shared something that's potentially not cool at the moment, you need to let us know and we'll run with it. And you can put this as urgent. And we'll just do our best to get that addressed.
Cool.
The improvements have happened over the past 3 months, and it is definitely not, where is it, that place that everybody wants to get to? Anyway, that's not that. We're nowhere near there, but we are ahead on the right track. But we have to drag a whole lot of people with us, and there's a whole lot of things that change in the process. So we are willing to own anything that's not going right and chase it until it is.
Cool, I'm glad to hear that.
Okay.
Thanks for that. So
You're
I
welcome.
have noticed that, things have gotten better.
Better, yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to see that it gets fully to where
Thank
we
you.
need it to
Yeah,
be.
agree.
Thanks.
It's great to have our community board chairs at the meeting. Thank you, Laura. I now have a question. Grant, you had one.
Oh, well, I was really just going to say what Rodney said about the conveners collecting names, and especially email addresses, I think is the most important thing, so that we can actually provide that feedback note to them, because I think that was the thing that we were lacking the most. We got the names, we didn't always get the email addresses, I don't think, but I stand to be corrected. And like James, I'd like to put forward another recommendation from the forums that wasn't picked up in the recommendations or service request outcomes.
So in regards to the emails getting collected by staff, the whole point of having the notes, so in the next report, it's information for receipt and it's all of the notes. And I appreciate that the last notes haven't been timely and we've had big gaps between community committee, but the idea behind the community committee is that all of those notes are out there in the public arena, so that instead of collecting email addresses and spending time emailing back, is that at the start of the community forum, it should be, hey, look out for the next community committee. All of the notes from all of the forums are going to be on there for information for receipt, and we're going to be discussing any issues in the community forum outcomes report. So I think by putting it out into the public, you can point to the website rather than one-on-one emailing back, because that's the reality is it's too time consuming for my team.
And I'm not expecting you to do that. We made that clear at our briefing. But it was really a belts and braces approach. And yes, it's incumbent on the conveners, and I'm happy to take on that task as well to communicate back to those people that came in person.
Ross.
Yes, if members would like to look at page 19 and 20 of the Bowentown report, there was a lot about roads and a lot about things, and reports back was, oh, well, we'll chuck it back to the community board to fund, or it goes into service requests and disappears. And particularly about Seaforth Road between the Bowentown roundabout towards Anzac Bay, that has been a long-standing issue for the last 6 or 8 months. And it only sort of really got legs when it was raised at the community forum. And should funding be allocated? Well, that leaves it in the lap of the gods of the long-term plan, which has got quite a bit of money in it. But we got no idea what the allocation and priorities of that may well be. So if it doesn't happen in 2024-25, when does it happen? So I think we need to close the loop on these sort of things so that we actually know that it is going to be subject to a whole lot of other things, I dare say. I'm sure that is not the only road in Western Bay that has gone to rack and ruin in the last couple of years. So also just sending it back to the community board, I'll have a little to say about things that should be improved to enhance our communities later on. So we receive these, we do them with and respond to them in good faith, but we end up having to front for what has happened to them. And that's where we need to close the loop as well. Thank you.
That point has been well made. John, last question.
Yes, thanks very much. I think it would be great, I think, if we can not just include them in the notes, but in fact, think about Facebook page, think about even giving it, putting it into the community board reports so that we can get the information back, because it's not just the people who are attending the meetings that actually it affects. There's a silent majority that maybe do not raise their hands that we need to get to. So it's the whole community, and the community forum is about the community. So we need to think about ways of getting feedback to the whole community. And I think if we can, those community boards that have Facebook pages, and I don't, so therefore we're behind, but we're working on it. But the other thing is that even if it's in the community board report back in the minutes, and then other channels besides just the community forum report, it would be great, because I think people read many get their information from many sources, not just one or two.
Oh gosh, just about forgot you, Alan. You're in the queue. I've got you in the queue, Alan. It's Don first, and then yourself.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just to talk about potholes, I think potholes are going to be around as long as we've got roads, and so it's going to be how you try and manage the squeaky wheel type scenario. Ross well knows, because he was there at when the original performance-based contract was put in place, and the savings equated to 2 to 3 million a year, which allowed 10 kilometres of roading network to be tar sealed that hadn't previously been done. So, you know, in the past, you can chase potholes all day long and spend $2 million zigzagging around, or you can just tolerate a percentage of potholes, and they will get to it in the scheduled maintenance as the roads deteriorate, they get updated. And, you know, we're about to do the renewal of the One Network contract. So maybe my point was, rather than just at my meeting, maybe because the community board chair's here as well, we should have a briefing at your next meeting, just from Cedric and his team, just a little bit about the way the whole contract works. And we just don't chase potholes all day long and seeing roading teams all over the network chasing potholes. So I know it's not a thing people like to see, but they come at a cost. If you want to put up rates by another 2 to 3 million a year, we can solve every pothole in the district within 7 days of them being created, but they come at a cost. So you take your choice. But anyway, that was my 2 cents worth. But if you're just going to turn this into my pothole is more important than your pothole, I think we're wasting our time and staff time around it.
Okay, we'll make sure that we've got Cedric here at the next meeting. All right, Rachel? So who else have I got? I've got Don, John, and Anne, but the first one is John. Oh, it's very confusing when you point your finger, then put your hand up. I get totally confused. So I'll watch you out. So now go to Anne.
So just one more point on closing the loop. And I have tried to close the loop, and the governance team have been very good about giving the information, but just this one point, it's potholes and road damage to Seaforth Road and from Plum Road to the roundabout to Anzac Bay, which has, and the feeling down there is that they haven't had much attention to their road. The answer is, should funding be allocated, rehabilitation of this road is likely to commence during the 24-25 year. I'm not really happy about going out and giving in that should be what sort of thing, because I feel that if it's setting them up for an expectation that's not likely to happen, I would like to have something a bit more defined to actually go back. And I hear what you're saying, Rachel, and I agree with you. And this is just working out a streamlined sort of approach and the types of answers that we would be requiring, if we can get them, to take back to our people. Because it may be loosely, and I've seen it over here in the last 4 years, we have a date and it doesn't happen, it gets shifted out, and I don't want to be going out and being that person that's constantly saying something and then, oh no, but something else happened and we've moved it out. I don't want to do that.
Right. Alan, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry, actually mine's just a little bit of point of order, shall we say. And I think it's going to be very important that anybody that's collecting email addresses, be it just at the door or anywhere else, there are very clear privacy rules and requirements with email addresses that don't apply to phone numbers, for instance. But I think before anybody starts collecting them, they want to be very clear and maybe need to talk to our staff as to the requirements, because number one is collecting an email address for what purpose, and then being able to declare that it's not going to be used for anything else. And you've also got to remember that with email addresses, people have also got to have an ability to opt out of receiving your emails. So it's quite a dicky little bit of law that sits behind it. And I think before you start gathering too many email addresses, just let's be sure that we don't put the council or the committee or anybody else in a position where they actually are in breach of that privacy. That's all. Get some good guidance before we go down any line with that.
Thank you, Alan. But I must say that a few years ago, we went out of our way to collect email addresses so we could make better contact with all our ratepayers. And so you raise an issue that I think maybe we should address, but I still believe that the person at the end of the line, our ratepayers, want to hear from us by phone or by email. And so collecting that information is something that's fundamental to everything we do. Now, I'm going to move the recommendations, and my thing's gone blank, and from 1 to 5, and Grant, you're going to second it.
Point of order,
And you've got a
point of order,
six
Madam
that-
Chair. There's only one recommendation here, and I signalled I wanted to move an additional one as well. if I
Which
may.
which one have you got?
So on page 16, there's only one recommendation, and I would like to move that and move an additional motion, please.
Right. Happy to second it, but would you move your extra
I
recommendation?
have, but before you ask for a second, I better state it first.
Sorry?
I better state it before you ask for seconders. So I move that the governance manager's report dated 19th of October 23, titled Community Forums or Outcomes be received. I also want to move that staff assess the 70-metre paper road section of number 3 road as mentioned on page 17 of the report against the policy for the maintenance of previously unmaintained roads.
I'm happy to second that. Any discussion? Grant?
So I just want to speak to my motion on this one. So that is a section of road, right at the end of number 3 road. It seems to function pretty well as a maintained road, but for whatever reason, it remains a paper road at this point. We have a policy as a council that we can convert that to a maintained road. At first sight, this may be eligible under that policy. So I would like staff to assess that with a view to taking it on as a maintained road.
I'm happy to support that. Any further discussion? Laura? And Andy?
Yep, I would be in support of that. Thanks, James.
Grant?
Yes, I'll also support that. We've had the residents, when they spoke at the forum, were quite visibly upset that their road was being overlooked, and it's clearly, if you drive up there, it's clearly a continuation of the council road, and it was produced as part of a subdivision, and it just never seemed to get that final step to complete the road to the start of the driveways.
I don't think we're walking over your committee there, Councillor Thwaites. So I'll put the motion in favour. I'll say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you for that. Now we move to the forum. Grant?
Yeah, Margaret, I would also signal I'd like to make a motion, a recommendation. I'm hoping I can do it separate to the previous one, but it's also in a similar vein as a result of the forums. So my recommendation relates to item 4 on page 49, and that's the Pukahina Community Patrol Vehicle. Both Richard, John and myself.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, that seems to be a different report. So that will come up in the next report if it's, because if it's page 49, it's the next, next one.
Apologies, yeah.
Community Forum notes for receipt. First of all, thank you very much, Greer, and I'm sorry you can't move this, but I'm happy to do so from 1 to 5, that they be received, and Grant is seconding that. Any discussion? We've had plenty.
Sorry, Margaret. This is where I need to add my recommendation, sorry. Recommendation 6.
Which is?
And it's in relation to page 49, Pukahina Community Patrol Vehicle. So my recommendation is that the Community Committee recommends that council staff work with Pukahina Residents and Ratepayers Association and make a favourable offer of a suitable ex-council staff car for the purposes of a community patrol vehicle.
This is information for receipt, so we have to take that as a separate motion. So you've seconded the motion that I moved, that we receive all this stuff. Those in favour will say aye. Against? Carried. So what's your further recommendation, and could you add to it or encourage sponsorship for it?
You're going to run council through this committee now. Don't we need a budgeting committee anymore? What is this, Grant? What are you pulling here?
It's a recommendation that council investigate the option to provide an ex-council vehicle at a favourable rate to a community group who's in need of a new community patrol vehicle. We dispose of our vehicles all the time, and this would be an opportunity to do community good.
Rachel.
Madam Chair, can I recommend that rather than moving such a recommendation from this committee and within this report, because that can't actually be done within an information for receipt report, that we perhaps hold it in abeyance until the workshop this afternoon, which is, or immediately after this committee, which is where Jodie and her team will be seeking direction from council around its response to community safety. And I would see community patrols, and then as an extension of that, you know, the use of vehicles or ex-council vehicles is potentially part of a conversation around community safety. That is where it's better placed, in my view. And I'm uncertain whether a recommendation of that nature, which is essentially directing what council staff ought to do, is one that needs to be considered within a policy setting grant. So my recommendation is to bundle up that conversation around community patrol cars and whether or not council develops a policy to contribute those vehicles from its ex-fleet as part of this afternoon's or the workshop shortly on community safety.
No, that's fine. It's just that
I appreciate that advice and will leave it to the workshop. And the minutes will be confirmed as a true and correct record of council of the 23rd of November. There is no further business. I declare the meeting closed and thank you for your attendance. We're starting to get into gear with this community committee. I'm very pleased. So thank you, staff. Because you're doing so much work. We can't do anything at this table without this team approach.